Nature was always such a wondrous thing to me. Ever since I was a kid, I would marvel at the amazing creatures that the natural world had to offer, and felt a certain kinship with them. The other living souls of the planet really spoke to me, and I've been attempting to speak back ever since. As a nature photographer, I have been all around the planet recording wildlife. So when a couple of friends offered to go onto a special photo hunt in Canada for some wintertime wolf action, I couldn't pass it up. We got together, made the plan, and headed out, packing serious winter gear and several days' worth of food. We'd head out to the wildlife refuge. We hike into an area thick with deer, moose, caribou, and rodents and small mammals. Perfect wolf habitat. We find a good vantage point, conceal ourselves in a blind, and wait. About an hour goes by and we begin to see movement a couple hundred yards out. I raise the binoculars for a better look. I can vaguely make out the outline of several wolves just past the tree line, moving slowly, back and forth, just waiting for the opportune moment. A herd of caribou is alerted. 4 of the wolves burst out into the open towards the herd. The caribou scatter. The pack trails an old, sickly bull bringing up the rear of the herd. Out of nowhere, 4 more wolves burst out into the open from the opposing side of the clearing, heading straight for the old bull. They came out of nowhere. We didn't even realize they were there. They were right underneath us, said Joe in a sharp whisper. The 8 wolves surrounded the old caribou. A takedown is achieved, and the feasting begins. Did you get that on tape, Gary? I asked. Sure as hell did, he answered. We bust out our cameras and begin photographing. The wolves make good work of the meat. After about an hour of feeding, the pack takes a break and takes a rest around the carcass. The alpha male is quite the beast, a dark gray mixed with black and white coloration, the most typical color pattern for a wolf. But nonetheless, he was a spectacular specimen, tall, long, domineering, along with a set of eyes that would pierce through the thickest steel. He has a look around the vicinity while his pack members rest, scanning for anything that may pose a threat. Then he lets out a long, ghostly howl that echoes through the wilderness. His packmates join in, composing an eerie chorus that rings out through the valleys and ravines. Ah, the children of the night. What music they make, I exclaimed. All right, Dracula, laughed Joe. It is a crazy sound. It's almost supernatural how beautifully haunting it is, said Gary. Amazing, I whispered. You really have a thing for wolves, don't you? Asked Joe. Oh God, yes. Ever since I was a kid. Same with a lot of predators. Big cats, bears, wolves, sharks, crocodilians, orcas. Don't get me started on dinosaurs. Oh boy, laughed Gary. It makes sense that you would be a wildlife photographer. Not just wildlife, but the whole natural world in general. Mountains, trees, forests, oceans, jungles, deserts, all of it. Nature boy, laughed Joe. You know it, I answered. We all laughed while observing the pack. The sun starts to get low and we make our way back to camp. We start a fire and begin to make dinner. The fire rages to a good size and we begin to converse. The wilderness is chock full of old stories. Giants, Sasquatch, werewolves, dogman, evil spirits, the works, said Gary. Quite a few disappearances in this area too, added Joe. Most of them were never solved. What do you think that's all about? I asked. Don't know. No one really knows exactly, answered Gary. A bunch of cannibals? Some unknown predator? Who knows? Said Joe. We began to hear the wolves howling once more in the distance. Only this time, there seems to be a sense of urgency in the howls. Almost as if something has the pack. Concerned. Puzzled. We turn in early to get some rest for the long day ahead. Gary quietly awakes Joe and I a few hours later. There's something outside around our tent, he whispered. What? What is it? I asked. Don't know. It has a bipedal pattern, he whispered. There's a .44 Magnum in James's pack, whispered Joe. I want to get it out, I said. Do you think that it's someone trying to steal something? Said Gary. I don't know. It's pretty late and damn cold outside, whispered Joe. And we're pretty far off the beaten path, I said. Should we try to scare them off? Said Gary. I don't know. Seems like they're just walking around the perimeter. The spotlight is in the pack as well. Maybe we can blind them and drive them away. Yes, if they're going to take a shot at us, I think that they would have already done it by now, said Joe. Let's give it a minute, I said. A minute or two passes and we decide to attempt to scare whatever it is off. I grabbed the .44 while Gary and Joe both grabbed the spotlights and headlanterns. We burst outside in a bright blaze of electrical glory, only to discover that there's nothing out there. Absolutely nothing. No tracks, no hair, no sounds, not a trace of what had been there. All three of us could hear whatever it was just in sight of the woodline. And now all of a sudden, silence. Nothing. Not a trace. We discuss amongst ourselves what our next course of action should be. Gary suggests that one of us should stand guard over the camp and that we switch out every few hours. But Joe maintains that we should just get some sleep, that whatever it was outside is long gone now. We eventually agreed and got some rest. Although the cot was burning and the large cabin tent was relatively warm, my mind still wandered at the possibilities of what could have been lurking outside. Anything was possible, and to be honest, I wasn't completely sure if I wanted to find out. Time ticked by ever so slowly. Eventually I drifted off. I awoke in the morning to Gary calling out for Joe. I got up, put my coat on, and went outside. What's up? I asked. It's Joe. There's not a trace of him. I don't know where he went. I've been up for about 15 minutes figuring that he went out somewhere, but I've been calling for him for about a minute and I've gotten no response. There's no fresh footprints leading to or away from our campsite. Absolutely nothing. And all of his gear is still in the tent, said Gary. Joe, I screamed. Where are you? It won't do any good. I've been doing that for a while. We should go look for him. Should we report this to the rangers? Yes, eventually. If we don't find him, then yes. But I want to take a little hike to see if we can find anything. Where do you think he went? There's no tracks going anywhere, and all of his gear is still in the tent. No idea. Let's just see if we can find him or on our own first. We head out. We go about a mile, shouting, glancing through the binoculars looking for movement, any sign of life. Then Gary and I both notice that the life has been quiet, inactive. Not a sound. We hike along the stream, deliberating about what we should do next. We've been searching and calling for 2 hours. I think we need to go speak to the rangers, I said. Definitely, said Gary. We turn back and start to head back. Where the hell could he be? I muttered. No idea, answered Gary. Let's get back to camp, get our gear, and contact the rangers station ASAP. The horror that we witnessed next was otherworldly. There was pools of fresh blood scattered all around our campsite. The fuck is this? I whispered. What the hell is going on now? Gary could just stare blankly with his mouth hanging wide open, speechless. I examined the site, blood covering the outside of our tent as well as the ground. Just then I hear a knock. I turn around to see Joe, covered in his own blood with a devious smile on his face. Joe? What? He just grunts. I notice a large gash going down from his midsection. He had been disemboweled. But he was still alive, still conscious. Just then his body went limp, falling to the ground, revealing a long, crouched down figure with sandy brown hair on its body. The figure stood up straight, nearing 10 feet in height. The thing was long and thin, almost sickly in bone or anorexic in build. Its hands were covered in Joe's blood and grasping a section of internal organs, maybe intestines. Long, talon-like claws were at the end of each finger, and most unsettling of all, the thing appeared to have a deer skull for a head. I wasn't sure if it was a type of headdress or head covering, or if that it was its actual head, but I wasn't sticking around to find out. Gary had literally just turned tail and ran that exact second I had followed suit. We were absolutely booking it. Had never ran so fast, before or since. We just kept going and going. It almost seemed like for miles. Gary, slow down. I don't think it followed us. Let's just see where we are and where we're going. Fuck that, he yelled. Fuck that thing right to hell. Gary, we don't even know where we're going. Shit, you're right. We stop. Which way was the ranger station? I asked. We both stopped to gather our thoughts for a moment. West, we both say simultaneously. Let's see, it's 3:30 now, so Oh, fuck, I said. What? Gary paused. We had both realized that we had been moving in the opposite direction of the station, going deeper into the preserve. Jesus, I whispered. Please tell me you brought the 44, James, Gary asked with a hint of desperation in his voice. Yes, but that thing shook me so badly that it didn't even cross my mind to draw it and open fire. All I wanted to do was run and get the hell out of there. Gary shook his head. I don't even know where to begin. Neither do I. Let's just keep our heads on straight and concentrate on getting to the station. We didn't run for that long, maybe 10 minutes or so. It's still reachable. We can easily make it before dark. Let's do it, he responded. We began to make our way back. As we passed by our campsite, we noticed that the blood in Joe's body are no longer there. Gary and I shoot each other a brief, suspicious glance. We continue walking, my right hand swaying a little closer to my pistol on my right side. We can continue for about 30 minutes, and then, somehow, someway, we're back at our campsite. How in the... snapped Gary. Impossible, I shuddered. James, how? Keep moving, Gary. Just keep moving. 30 minutes passes, and yet again, we're back at the campsite. I shake my head. James, what the hell is going on? I don't know. I shake my head. Let's move, said Gary. I can't stand being around here anymore at all. Let's just go. We keep moving and end up coming back to the tent 2 more times. Both of us are dumbfounded, not knowing what to do, and it's starting to get dark. We begin to hear screams off in the distance. Something is closing in, quick. Gary and I start running fast. Then, after a few minutes, I notice that I'm alone, by myself. Gary! I yell. No answer. Gary! I yell sharply. No answer. I shake my head and sprint desperately towards the ranger station. No strange tricks or dimensional looping back to the tent this time. I make it, screaming my head off and pounding on the door. Suddenly, I hear a laugh behind me. It's Joe's grinning corpse, smiling right at me. I shriek and black out. Suddenly, I awake in the ranger station. Everything's torn up. Blood everywhere. Several mangled bodies lie on the floor. I head out the front door. Joe and Gary's dead mangled bodies lying down headfirst in the snow. I slam the door hard and notice blood on my hands. That's not mine. I head into the bathroom to look in the mirror. Blood all around my mouth. What the? No, it can't be, I yell. Something bangs against the station. A vile stench and an even more vile sound of growls and screams filling the air. I go back into the bathroom. Only this time when I look into the mirror, I see the beast staring back at me. Antlers, skull, elongated body and all. The blazing, yellow, demonic eyes staring directly at me. Its arms reach out, grabbing me tightly. I scream. It smiles, pulling me in slowly. I black out. I wake up. I'm being carted into an ambulance chopper. Gary? Joe? I call. No. One of the rangers says solemnly. What happened? I ask. You'll know soon enough. Just rest for now. You're lucky to be alive. I lean back, resting. At that moment, I notice a tall, lanky figure at a nearby ridge, staring down at me. I point in its direction, but as soon as one of the officers notices, it disappears. I get carted onto the rescue chopper. I see the figure one last time in the distance, and it fades back into the heart of the wilderness.